This is my 2015 Hawk 250, and this is going to be my 7-year review. So I bought this bike new in 2015. I ordered it from Texas Power Sports. It showed up to my house on a pallet from a semi-truck. I assembled it. There was basically no instructions that came with the bike. It just came with the front wheel off, the rear shock wasn't in it, and you just had to throw it together. It took me and my buddy about maybe 4 hours. We didn't have any experience putting together bikes from pallets, but it was kind of a gamble. I paid $1,350 for it, shipped, and it's been a great bike ever since I've had it. I've had it since 2015, so running about 7 years now. It's got about 2,200 miles, most of which were off-road, and I've done quite a few modifications to it since I've had it, and some of them just replacement parts, some of them just make it better, but all in all, it's been a great bike. I've had other bikes along with it, and I've hung on to this bike the whole time just because it's been one of my favorite bikes that I've owned. So I'll go through some modifications that I've done to it. The front fender, after a couple years, I had a crash, busted the front fender. This is a front fender from a California scooter company, TT250. A lot of parts are interchangeable between those two bikes. The TT250 being a more expensive bike than this, but then they come assembled. But I went with this matte black because it worked good with the green. It's kind of hard to get a hold of a lime green front fender, where this one shipped right out of California and I had it in a couple days. I've done some little spoke covers here that are basically just green straws, essentially. I'm not really a mod, but I thought it was fun. This skid plate is also for a CSE TT250. Definitely worth, I think it was about 120 bucks. Very overbuilt, super thick. Definitely worth it because there's nothing protecting your engine on these bikes, and you'll bottom right out. I've also got this brake cover from eBay. It came from China. It was like 4 bucks. Nice to have. You can tell it obviously does a good job because it's got 2 giant scrapes on it, so that probably helped quite a bit. I dumped the stock carburetor immediately. It's got tamper-proof screws in it, so if you want to get into it just to clean it or adjust it, you got to use a Dremel tool. You can get a new carburetor, this one on here, just a PZ30 off of Amazon. It's $18. That's what I paid for this one, and works great. I bought a real Mikuni, put it on here. After it got gunked up, it was time to buy a rebuild kit after a couple years, and I was like, okay, the rebuild kit was like 25 bucks, or the cheap knockoff carb was 18. So I went with the cheap knockoff, no performance differences. I'm lucky enough that I live pretty much at sea level, so the carbs pretty much come right out of the box, tuned, ready to go. If you live somewhere where that's not, obviously you're gonna have to do some tuning and jets and stuff, so I understand that. But moving along, I've got an LED headlight. Definitely worth it, especially if you're new to riding motorcycles. A really good headlight can pretty much save your life. I mean, people see you better. Also, the indicator lights I've replaced with LEDs. You can just pick those up. 194 bulbs or 168 bulbs, like license plate light bulbs. They just pop in the back. Anything to get your power down, using less electricity, you won't run your battery dead as quickly. It's definitely nice. I've got LED blinkers in the front that I changed out because I busted them off. I kept the stock ones in the back. By doing that, I don't have to mess with the relay. It still flashes because these pull enough power that it doesn't notice that the fronts are LEDs. Also got bark busters and breakaway bars. Kind of redundant because these can't break away because the bark busters are in the way, but I got them first and then these second. These are definitely nice to have. They can be dangerous. Some of us call them wrist breakers. If you fall, catch your hand, but we do a lot of dirt biking kind of through the woods, and I more like these to push the branches away from my hands. I've also got an Bluetooth stereo. I love it. I've had these on multiple bikes. They're amazing. Yeah, it's fun to listen to music. Obviously, if you're going to be on the freeway or something, this is essentially useless because once you go over about 45, you can barely hear it. But when you're dirt biking in the woods and stuff, this is a lot of fun. I like it because I can still hear the people trying to talk to me while listening to music. My only complaint about this is that I wish it had like a quick mute button, because I have to like turn the volume down a bunch and then turn the volume back up a bunch. But it's got Bluetooth. It also has an SD card. You can load like 100 songs of what you want to listen to, and then you don't have to worry about pairing your phone or nothing like that. Definitely a great thing to have a fun time with. This, on my forks, I have these adjusters, also from China. They're new caps for your forks, and they're preload adjustments, so they have a screw in them. I can get an angle here that allows you to tighten down tension. So you'll notice people talk about putting spacers in here or nickels or whatever. These make it so you can just put a wrench on that and tighten it or loosen it and change your preload. Also cheap. I think they were like 30 bucks. Definitely worth getting for some modifications. Other than that, I've got this back rack here. You can find these around. I bought these from an individual on one of the forum pages, and he shipped it from China. Definitely like having it. I think I paid like 40 bucks for it. Definitely great. This is just two straps here, and I've got my Pro Taper bar here for pulling, and then I almost forgot Pro Taper bars. Definitely something you might consider upgrading the handlebars. You don't have to. The stock ones are fine. I just wanted the thicker bars. And then shifter. There's 100 different kinds of shifters out there. Definitely the stock one's kind of short, so getting a bigger one's nice. And this panel here, I broke. I had my chain too loose, was out dirt biking, chain got jammed up in here, busted this plate off. This is also from TT250. And then I have had to replace my battery probably 5 times. I've done a lithium-ion battery, which is really expensive. I've done cheap batteries. And what I found is this bike uses the size of battery that would fit in a bike that doesn't have a starter, but it has a starter. So it just eats batteries. There's not really much you can do. It really is supposed to have a 6.5 amp hour battery, and when you're purchasing batteries, if you look at the specs of the battery that would fit in this box, they're never 6.5 amp hour. They're always 4.5 or 5. And so what I've done, and you can't really see it, is I have a massive battery in here that barely fits, but once the fender's on, it doesn't really matter. And I'll put a link to that, but you have to do a little bit of tweaking on the battery box. You kind of jam it in there, and the fender goes on fine, but what it creates is I have tons of power, and I think this battery lasted about 1.5 years before it finally quit. Turn the switch off here so you can just, it'll just crank and crank and crank. Alright, so for some pros for this bike, it's cheap. It's extremely easy to work on. I mean, to do a top end on this, it's a push rod motor with a lower cam, so you don't even have to worry about timing. You can do a whole top end without having to worry about setting timing or anything like that. It's all pretty easy to access. The bike's very simplistic. I mean, it's mimicking technology from about 20-30 years ago, so obviously you can get an idea of how easy it is to work on. And I'm only speaking to the carbureted version. I don't own the fuel injected version, so I can't speak to that, though it's pretty similar, with the exception of the fuel injection system. So final thoughts, after 7 years of running this bike, my opinion on it is, it depends on who you are if you want it. If you're looking for just a cheap bike that you don't have to do much to, you can just hop on and ride, I heavily recommend just getting a 10-20 year old Honda. More than likely you'll be able to just hop on it, run it, and then when you're done with it, you can sell it and get more or your money back, or most of your money back. Now, if you want to learn how to work on bikes and you want a brand new bike, whether you're new to bikes or you've had one in the past but you don't want to pay a lot, this is a good bike. I've had no major failures on mine. You need very minimal tools to work on these. When you get it, it is a brand new bike. Everything's new. You just have to be able to assemble it, maybe do a little bit of tuning. It is street legal. I mean, it's got plates. I've got insurance on it. It's a lot of fun. I have other bikes. I can tell you this bike is not a powerhouse. And I would say it's comparable to about a 200cc Honda, like an XR 200, but it's heavy. It's really heavy, and don't try to do jumps with it. It's 300 pounds plus the rider, and then you pushing 500 pounds through the air on Chinese metal with poor 30-year-old design suspension. It's just not. I would never take I'd never take this bike over a foot in the air. Even then, I mean, if you're a really good rider and you land a jump perfectly, yeah, you could probably do it. But as soon as you miss, I mean, your front wheel is gonna taco and everything else. But anyone who has these bikes, watch this video, let me know. I'd love to find someone who has had theirs since 2015 and how it's held up. Because I have not found a whole bunch of people who have these, have had these for that long.